I never thought my 22nd birthday would be the day everything fell apart. My father's text message changed everything. Sold your laptop. Madison needs a new phone. Be grateful we feed you. Then came the kicker. Also, you'll pay her tuition. $6,000 by Friday. When I replied no chance, his response was immediate. Then get out. You're cut off. So I left quietly. The next morning, they found what I left on the table. Now my sister's panicking and my mom screaming. Before I dive into the story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever dealt with family favoritism or had to stand up for yourself, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in difficult situations. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Brooke Wilson, and until recently, I was just your average 22-year-old college student trying to make it through my final semester while working 2 part-time jobs. I'd been saving every spare dollar for my own place, but my parents insisted I live at home to save money, though as you'll soon learn, that wasn't exactly working out in my favor. The morning of my birthday started like any other day. I woke up early, got dressed for my morning waitressing shift, and headed downstairs. My mother, Karen, was in the kitchen making coffee. Happy birthday, Brooke, she said without looking up from her phone. Thanks, Mom, I replied, waiting for something more. Maybe a card or a small gift, but nothing came. Don't forget you need to drive Madison to her friend's house later, she added, still scrolling through her social media. I nodded, swallowing my disappointment. I should have been used to it by now. The laptop sitting on the kitchen counter was my pride and joy, a MacBook Pro I'd purchased 3 months ago after saving tips from my waitressing job for nearly a year. It contained everything important to me. My thesis research, job applications, portfolio, and photos. I closed it and carefully put it in my bag before heading out. This wasn't the first birthday that had been overshadowed by my younger sister Madison's needs. On my 16th birthday, my parents canceled my small party because Madison had a last-minute soccer tournament. When I turned 18, the money my grandparents had given me for a graduation gift mysteriously went to Madison's car down payment instead. By 21, I'd stopped expecting anything special. The Sunrise Diner where I worked was busy as usual, but my coworkers had remembered my birthday. Tammy from the kitchen had brought cupcakes, and my manager Richard Lawson even gave me a small gift card to my favorite bookstore. You're one of our hardest workers, Brooke, Richard said, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners. We appreciate you around here. That small acknowledgement meant more than he could know. At least somewhere in my life, my efforts were recognized. It was during my afternoon break, as I sat in the back alley of the diner with a cup of coffee, that my phone buzzed with a text from my father, Frank. Sold your laptop. Madison needs a new phone. Be grateful we feed you. I stared at the screen, certain I'd misread. My fingers trembled as I tried to call him, but he didn't pick up. Instead, another text came through. Also, you'll pay her tuition, $6,000 by Friday. The world seemed to tilt sideways. My laptop, my property that I'd bought with my own money, sold without my permission? And now I was expected to pay my sister's tuition? The same sister who had failed out of 3 different programs because she partied instead of studying? My chest tightened as tears threatened to spill. How could they do this? What gave them the right to sell my belongings? And where would I get $6,000 in 3 days? With shaking hands, I typed back the only response I could manage. No chance. His reply came instantly. Then get out. You're cut off. Just like that, on my birthday, I was being thrown out of my home, cut off from my family. All because I wouldn't fund my sister's 4th attempt at college after they'd stolen and sold my personal property. I somehow made it through the rest of my shift, moving on autopilot as I took orders and delivered food. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what to do next. Where would I go? What about my other belongings? And how would I finish my degree without my research and notes? As I hung up my apron at the end of my shift, Richard noticed my distraction. Everything okay, Brooke? You seem a million miles away. I forced a smile. Just family stuff. Nothing I can't handle. But as I walked to my car, a used Honda Civic, I'd also purchased myself, I knew I was facing the biggest crisis of my life so far. And somehow I needed to find a way through it. I drove straight to my best friend Olivia Martinez's apartment, tears blurring my vision as I navigated the familiar streets. Olivia had been my rock since freshman year of high school, and if anyone would understand what I was going through, it would be her. When she opened the door, one look at my face told her everything she needed to know. "Oh, Brooke," she said, pulling me into a hug. "What did they do this time?" I collapsed onto her couch and showed her the text messages, my hands still shaking. "Your dad sold your laptop? The one you saved for a year to buy." Olivia's voice rose in disbelief. "And now he wants you to pay Madison's tuition? That's insane." "It's always been like this," I said, wiping away tears. "But this time, they've gone too far." Olivia made us both tea as I recounted the long history of favoritism in my family. The pattern had been established early. Madison was the golden child who could do no wrong, while I was expected to be self-sufficient, responsible, and invisible. "Remember my high school graduation?" I asked Olivia, who nodded grimly. The memory was still painful. I'd been announced as the recipient of a prestigious scholarship, and as I walked to the stage, my mother had intercepted me to excitedly show me a text from Madison. She'd been named captain of her junior varsity cheerleading squad. My achievement, the culmination of 4 years of hard work, was completely overshadowed. "And remember when I got that internship at Thompson Marketing?" I continued, the words pouring out now. "My parents couldn't attend the reception because Madison had a hair appointment for prom." Olivia shook her head. "I remember. I've never understood why they treat you so differently." It wasn't just the big moments either. Throughout my life, my belongings had been considered communal property, available for Madison's use whenever she wanted. My clothes would disappear from my closet. Books I purchased for classes would vanish, only to be found damaged under Madison's bed. My first camera, a gift from my grandmother, was borrowed by Madison for a trip and returned with a cracked lens. "I've worked 2 jobs through college, Olivia." 2 jobs. Meanwhile, Madison has failed out of 3 different programs because she's too busy partying. I ran my hands through my hair in frustration. She crashed her 3rd car last month, her 3rd. And instead of consequences, she gets a new phone? And I'm supposed to pay for another attempt at college. Olivia's eyes widened. "Wait, what about your thesis? Wasn't all your research on that laptop?" The reminder sent a fresh wave of panic through me. Everything was on there. My thesis research, job applications, portfolio, everything. I buried my face in my hands. "For years of work, gone. You can stay here as long as you need," Olivia said without hesitation. The sofa pulls out, and Teresa is visiting her parents for the next 2 weeks anyway. Teresa Dixon was Olivia's roommate, a quiet nursing student who spent most of her time at clinical rotations. "I should call Aunt Diane," I said, reaching for my phone. "She's always seen through my parents' behavior." Diane Wilson was my father's sister, and unlike him, she had always treated me with kindness and respect. She answered on the 2nd ring. "Brooke, happy birthday, sweetheart." At least someone in my family had remembered. When I told her what had happened, she wasn't surprised. "Frank has always favored Madison," she said with a sigh. "Your grandparents tried to talk to him about it years ago, but he wouldn't listen. But selling your property and demanding you pay Madison's tuition? That crosses a line. I don't know what to do, Aunt Diane. They've kicked me out." "This has been building for years, Brooke. Maybe it's time you took a stand once and for all." After we hung up, Olivia and I sat at her kitchen table brainstorming. "You need to get your things," Olivia said. "And document everything." "I need to do more than that," I replied, a plan forming in my mind. "I need to make them face reality." For the next few hours, Olivia and I strategized. I would return home late that night to collect my essential belongings. But I would also leave something behind, something that would force my family to confront the truth about how they'd treated me all these years. Are you sure about this? Olivia asked. It could burn bridges permanently. I thought about my laptop, hours of work gone without a second thought. I thought about the thousands of dollars my parents had borrowed from me over the years, never to be repaid. I thought about all the times I'd been told to sacrifice for Madison's benefit. Some bridges need to be burned, I said firmly. It's time they learned I'm not their doormat anymore. It was almost midnight when I pulled into my parents' driveway. The house was dark except for Madison's bedroom light on the second floor. I used my key to enter quietly, hoping to avoid a confrontation. The house felt different somehow, knowing I wouldn't be living there anymore. I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, only to find the door ajar and light spilling into the hallway. Pushing it open, I froze at the sight before me. Madison was standing in front of my mirror, wearing my favorite dress, a black cocktail dress I'd purchased for job interviews. Clothes were strewn across my bed, drawers left open and half emptied. What are you doing in my room? I demanded. Madison jumped slightly but recovered quickly, smoothing down the fabric of my dress. Oh, it's you. I'm just seeing what fits me. Dad says you're moving out anyway. The casual way she said it, as if my being thrown out was an afterthought, made my blood boil. But I kept my voice level. That doesn't mean my clothes automatically become yours. Madison shrugged, twirling to see the dress from another angle. Mom said I could take whatever I want. You don't need fancy clothes for waitressing. I bit back the angry retort on the tip of my tongue. This wasn't about clothes. This was about respect, boundaries, and years of entitlement. Where's my laptop? I asked. Dad sold it to Walter next door. His daughter's starting college. Madison smirked. He got $1,200 for it. My new phone only cost $800, so I get to keep the difference. My $2,000 laptop sold for $1,200, so Madison could have spending money on top of a new phone? I felt sick. Did it occur to anyone that the laptop wasn't Dad's to sell? Madison rolled her eyes. Don't be so dramatic. It's just a laptop. Besides, you still live here rent-free. Not anymore, I said, pulling my suitcase from under the bed. And I've never lived here rent-free. While Madison continued trying on my clothes, making disparaging comments about my style, I methodically packed what I could. Clothes, toiletries, important documents, and the few sentimental items I couldn't bear to leave behind. All the while, Madison watched with detached curiosity, as if my life falling apart was a mildly interesting TV show. So are you really going to pay my tuition? She asked casually. No. Dad's going to be so mad, she said, almost gleefully. He already promised the university he'd pay by Friday. This was news to me. If Dad promised to pay, why is he telling me to do it? Madison shrugged. He said something about teaching you responsibility. Also, I think they're having money problems. Mom had to return some stuff she bought last week. Interesting. I filed that information away as I continued packing. When Madison finally left, wearing my dress and taking several other items with her, I moved quickly. From beneath a loose floorboard under my desk, I retrieved my emergency fund, $3,000 in cash that I'd been saving for years. My parents had a habit of borrowing from my bank account, so I'd learned to keep cash hidden. Next, I went to my closet and pulled out a box of records I'd been keeping for years. Bank statements showing withdrawals I hadn't made. Notes detailing loans my parents had taken. Copies of bills I'd paid for the household. It was all there, a paper trail of financial abuse dating back to my first job at 16. I worked methodically through the night, organizing documents and making copies of everything. At 2 a.m., I drove to a 24-hour copy shop to print final copies and compile a folder. When I returned home, the house was completely quiet. I made one last sweep of my room, then carried my suitcase and bags to the car. Before leaving, I placed the folder I'd prepared prominently on the kitchen table, where it would be seen first thing in the morning. On top of the folder, I left a simple note: the truth about who's been supporting whom. No more. As I backed out of the driveway for the last time, I felt a strange mix of emotions: grief for the family support I'd never truly had, fear of the uncertain future ahead, but also an unexpected sense of liberation. For the first time in my life, I was taking control of my own story. I glanced at the dashboard clock, 4:17 a.m. In a few hours, my family would wake up and discover what I'd left behind. By then, I would be safely at Olivia's, beginning my new life. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain: I would never again allow myself to be exploited by the people who should have protected me most. The folder I left on the kitchen table contained years of meticulously documented financial records, my parting gift to a family that had taken me for granted for far too long. The first section contained bank statements highlighting every unauthorized withdrawal my father had made from my account over the past 6 years. Each one was dated and annotated with what I'd been told the money was for: house emergency, helping with bills, just until payday. The total came to $8,347, money I'd earned working evenings and weekends while maintaining a full-course load. Next came a comprehensive breakdown of household expenses I'd covered since turning 18. Utility bills, grocery receipts, home repairs, all with my name on them. These documents showed that I had been paying approximately 70% of the household bills for the past 3 years, despite being a full-time student. The monthly average came to $1,450, far more than what would have been fair for a single room in a shared house. The third section detailed all the loans my parents had taken from me, money for everything from Madison's dance lessons to my mother's dental work to my father's car repairs. None of these loans had ever been repaid, despite repeated promises. This total was the most shocking: $15,283 over 6 years. Section 4 contained what had prompted my investigation in the first place: documentation regarding the college fund my grandparents had established for me. When I turned 18, I'd been told the money was gone due to market fluctuations. But my research had uncovered the truth. Bank records showed systematic withdrawals made by my parents, draining the account over several years. The total diverted: $22,500. I included copies of Madison's failed college transcripts, records my parents had hidden while continuing to fund her education. 3 different programs at 3 different schools, none lasting more than a semester. Thousands of dollars wasted because no one held Madison accountable. Perhaps the most damning evidence was the proof of ownership for my laptop, the receipt showing I had purchased it myself, the warranty registration in my name, and even the insurance policy I'd taken out on it. I included a screenshot of comparable models online, showing the true value was closer to $2,000, not the $1,200 my father had sold it for. At the end of the folder, I placed 3 final documents. First, a formal invoice for all unpaid loans, unauthorized withdrawals, and the stolen laptop, totaling $25,830. Second, a letter from my friend Trevor Hawkins, a law student specializing in family law, outlining the potential legal consequences of financial abuse and theft. The letter explained that while I preferred to resolve this privately, I was prepared to pursue legal action if necessary. Finally, a copy of the police report I'd filed regarding the theft and unauthorized sale of my laptop. I hadn't named my father directly yet, but the report established a legal record of the incident. The note I'd attached to the folder was brief, but clear: I would have no contact with any of them until full restitution was made for what had been taken from me over the years. What I couldn't document in that folder was the emotional cost of years of being treated as less than. The birthdays overlooked, the achievements ignored, the constant message that Madison's wants were more important than my needs. But I hoped that the financial reality would shock them into recognizing the broader pattern of how they'd treated me. As I settled onto Olivia's pull-out couch that morning, physically and emotionally exhausted, I wondered how long it would take for my family to discover